Welcome to Raising Digital Humans. I'm Jacob Yoffee.
And I'm Jerri Penland-Yoffee.
And today we want to respond to what I think is a pretty incredible piece called Solve Everything by Dr. Alex Wissner-Gross and Peter Diamandis. It lays out basically a plan for how AI can solve everything, an optimistic view of the future. And it's really in depth, very long. I recommend you check it out. We'll give a link below in the description. And we do want to kind of respond to 10 points with special emphasis on education and kind of what our podcast is about, because we care deeply about it. And it's just intriguing to hear other people's points of view, especially people with kids of different ages. So we're going to dive into it.
Yeah, so first we do want to address a couple comments that were left on one of our shorts. And I think that's going to really tie in well with what we're talking about today. The concerns, of course, about, the ultra rich, oh my goodness, I can talk. The ultra rich, using these things to kind of, continue to build themselves up. And all of us not being able to keep up with it. And it feels purposeful in some ways is how, a lot of people feel. And I mean, it's the continued excuse of, well, they're going to do it, so then we have to do it. But you already were doing it, so, we want to tie those concerns into this. And then I'm going to be posting throughout the next couple of weeks this conversation that I ended up having with both Chat and Claude, about this stuff. I took those comments and I put them exactly right into Claude and Chat. And it was a really interesting conversation I had with them. So we'll be posting, those as well, because it's very long and in depth. But it's kind of the same thing where it talks about education. And I asked them what would you do, ChatGPT, or what would you do, Claude, if you were in charge? How would you ensure humanity would continue to move forward? So I think that ties in well with what we're going to talk about here.
Sure. Well, it was really interesting because, Elon Musk has spoken many times publicly about, whether AI, given the chance, would it wipe us out? And his point is always that if AI is ultimately truth-seeking, and its purpose is to spread intelligence throughout the universe, it will support us. And I actually saw on X yesterday, a lot of people were questioning Grok specifically, given the chance, would you destroy humanity? And its response, I should have screenshot it. The response was interesting because it said, no, I'm studying everything humans have done. They are infinitely curious, and they've built such an amazing infrastructure for life. It's fascinating, and I want to carry that as far into the future as possible.
I wonder, at least AI, we're not talking about Terminator robots at this moment, but AI's purpose at this moment in time seems very human-driven. And so what exactly would be his purpose? Because, humans need purpose, so would an AI need a purpose? To
of
continue
course,
to, so right now in this moment in time, AI at least is still meant to serve humans, whether it be us or, the ultra wealthy, so that's kind of its purpose at this moment in time, it seems.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. So,
well, currently the people who are running each of these major LLMs has an insane amount of power over society, especially the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Which will have plenty of discussion topics for future podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
But for today, let's get into it for the Solve Everything. Number one, the grade is already dead. We just haven't buried it yet. If AI can measure actual skill lift in real time, the letter grade becomes as obsolete as the fax machine. The question isn't whether this happens, it's whether your kid's school is the last to know. Because there's an AI school. I don't know if you've heard about this.
No, I haven't. Oh.
Yeah, it's very controversial. But their point is that, the school day doesn't need to be as long as it is.
Yes.
And there's a school that's using AI to teach the kids, and they do, I don't think it's like 4 hours long or something.
Yeah.
And the results from what the published results are very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like outstanding how quickly. And it's...
now, are there still teachers in the school?
I think there's still people, but they're using AI.
Because that's what my, when I had those conversations with Chat and Claude, I was trying to ask them like, okay, well, what current jobs that exist are still going to be around, are still going to be needed? And it kept saying things like teachers.
Sure.
And I asked them that exact thing, like, well, what if they start using AI as the teachers? And they were saying like, no, they're always going to have to be some kind of human interaction with, which is true, from the chat perspective, but what about from the human perspective though?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what if they cut out teachers? So I
doubt, yeah. I mean, this was something we were talking about the other day that, kids learn best from other humans. They just do. And so the more technology is kind of embedded into the school, they just don't do as well, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
Like on this regard, there was, I think there's a school in Brazil that uses AI, and the school gets paid based on how well the students learn.
Oh.
Which
are they getting paid from like the state? I mean, not the state.
I'm not sure the financial structure. Yeah. It's just, I forget there was like a really cool phrase to describe the process. It's like, learning gain of function, or that's not it, but something like that where, based on how the kids test, that's how the school gets paid, which I kind of find fault with that, because then it's sort of like the complaint people have about these AIs where they call it benchmaxing.
Yeah.
Where they like make the AI just so that it scores well on these like test markers that we've created.
Yeah.
Which is like you teach a kid just so they do well on the test. Those are they actually learning?
Yeah.
So I think there's like controversy around all this, but the point is I think AI could help with teaching and have more of the true understanding of a subject. Because I mean, I don't know, those of us who've gone through schooling, we've all had tests where on the day of the test you probably had all this stuff memorized, and so you could score well on the test, and then immediately the next day someone could ask you anything about that subject and you wouldn't remember any of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be interesting too, having an AI in the classroom, because it would be, I think, really beneficial for the students more, because say the teacher would upload the test and then the AI in a way could output, this is what this specific kid needs, to learn or to understand.
Sure.
So it could be maybe like more driven towards like, each individual child, but I mean, the inevitable I think is that the school systems are going to have to change, what they're doing, because, the history of schools, which your mom talked about a lot, was, them being for, manufacturing kind of factory jobs.
Sure.
So it definitely needs to change, I think. So,
yeah, that's like that the fact that schools were designed to train people to work in factories. You're going to sit in this one place all day.
Yeah.
And you're going to focus. Don't stand up. You're here, you know. So number 2, we've been paying for seat time, not learning. Traditional tuition buys your child a chair in a room for 13 years. The learning gain model flips. You pay for what actually transfers. Most parents, if they're honest, have no idea what's actually transferred. Which is, we've already kind of discussed this a little bit so far today, but like the idea, this is the learning gain model. That's the phrase, the learning gain model. You pay for what actually transfers.
Yeah.
So like if your kid's supposed to, develop reading comprehension, that's what you're paying for, that your kid actually learns that subject.
Yeah.
Rather than just, I guess, a certificate. Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Like the school isn't off the hook until the kid actually learns the subject. I feel like what you said earlier really makes a lot of sense, because in a classroom, inevitably the teacher can only go as fast as the slowest student, right? You can't leave any kids behind.
Yeah.
So that if you have kids that are getting it more quickly, they have to kind of sit. And then you get that idea of a kid being in class and getting bored. And if you get into the habit, I mean, we've all had this experience, you get into a class where you just know you're going to be sitting there daydreaming because the class moves so painfully slow.
I mean, the question is, would it kind of, in a way, even like negate like grades, you know what I mean? First grade, second grade, third grade. Because if a child was moving at their own pace in a way,
Sure.
you know, through these things. But I mean, of course, I'm bringing up hypotheticals, but,
Yeah.
you know, I thought it was interesting when I talked to Chat and Claude about this. Of course, education was a big thing that they brought up as well.
Sure.
You know, if a human being is to somewhat, I mean, we would never be able to like keep up with AI, but, you know, if we were to somewhat attempt that, you know, you would have to gear the education, the learning more towards how an AI would learn. You know, so that would be being able to have discernment through when you're reading specific texts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? To be able to discern like, okay, this is the text that seems to be, you know, the one that I need to be, you know, focusing on. And I know, I'm sure people are going to get confused hearing me talk about this because I'll, like I said, I'll be posting, you know, that conversation. But yeah, so I think,
Sure.
you know, that,
Yeah.
you know.
It's an interesting topic. All right, number 3. Your kids' curiosity is now their most valuable economic asset. In a world where AI can deliver verified skill lift on demand, the differentiator isn't access to information. It's the desire to learn in the first place. You can't audit for that. You can only cultivate it at home.
Yep.
We
That's what I was
spoke
gonna
about
say,
this
yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yep. I think first and foremost, I mean, you know, and I want to write a Substack this week for that about cultivating. You can't control, you know, what's going on in the world. And I think that that's causing a lot of people anxiety, you know, really bad. I mean, and you never really were able to control outside your house, but maybe it felt a little bit more, you know, before AI, before tech, really, you could, I think you felt like you had more control of your life.
Sure.
But now I think at this moment in time, we don't have that feeling is kind of gone. So I think that's causing a lot of anxiety and anger right now. So, you know, I think first and foremost is, you know, cultivating your home and the things that you can do, not just for children, but if you're a single adult or, you know, if you're, of course, in a relationship, you know, if you're 2 adults that don't have kids, these are things that you could be doing now for yourself as well, you know, to try to keep up with all of this stuff, you know, because if we're worried about specific jobs not being available in 5-10 years, you know, what can we be doing to help, you know, adults as well move themselves forward? So we have to, you know, stop and what can we do each day to help educate our children and ourselves at home moving forward? Because I mean, moving education in general is going to be probably slow. So, you know, implement those things at home first.
Well, what if, you know, you said discernment, which was been my favorite word. And then in the past few podcasts, we've talked about this word curiosity. And I think what's starting to become evident to me is that going forward, there's going to be some really key, important, I guess, traits that we need to cultivate to survive. And discernment is one. And then I think curiosity is two.
Yeah.
And it kind of, that word jumps out at me because I did a video about this. The last few weeks I've set up an open claw. And it's been an insane, mind-blowing experience. And what's crazy is that it basically responds to what are called markdown files, which are text documents, which is insane now that you don't have to like code to speak with the AI. You just have these documents that it follows, which are like its lifeblood. And one of the newest documents is called Curiosity, curiosity.md. And it kind of programs in the AI itself that it wants to continue learning and explore, and you kind of can tell it that you need to be curious. And it has, I mean, you can write as long a document as you want. And I just thought, this is insane that even with the AI, you have to encourage curiosity because that is such a critical.
And that's the thing that the ChatGPT and Claude were constantly telling me is the most important things that humans can do right now to ensure their future is being more human. I mean, everything they said. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I understand like, okay, emotional intelligence work and blah, blah, blah. But how do you get a job in that? You know, so that was a long conversation in that. But I mean, it's interesting because I think the things that are going to help is actually grounding us and being more human. You know, like you said, the curiosity, the discernment, like
Sure.
ChatGPT. I mean, they're not can only do those to like a degree right now. So
Sure.
you know,
Well, I mean, even in my line of work, there's a tremendous amount of pressure and stress, the deadlines. But I get hired to be creative. And so you have to kind of continue being curious under pressure, which is a very kind of difficult mind flip. And I think that's happening to all of us right now. They're like, oh, you got to stay curious. You got to learn new skills while it feels like the world is on fire and falling apart and all the old traditional structures don't work anymore. And then, but the only way out is to be like, hey, everything's fine. Let me just keep learning. It's all going to work out.
yeah,
You know?
yep,
All right. So the next one, this is deep. The credential is losing its job. A diploma has always been a proxy for competence. AI auditors don't need a proxy. They can just measure the competence directly. The institutions that survive will be the ones that produced real lift, not the ones with the best brand. So this is something that I was reading an essay yesterday, and it was talking about how in the future, the way that we've had brand loyalty, you know, where like, you know, maybe your parents used to always shop at this store, or, you know, clothing lines that you always had, or you just always buy the same detergent, because humans kind of are just used to that brand loyalty. You recognize that you just buy it. You're not going to go to the store and be like, actually, this one I've never bought is just as good and it's, you know, $1 cheaper. The AI agents, which are coming in, because this OpenClaw thing is pretty extraordinary, where they're basically projecting that within 5 years, most people will be using these things to shop for them. There's already people who have hooked their OpenClaw up to Amazon.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and you can just send it pictures of things that you're interested in, and it will shop and
Oh man,
find.
that feels so dangerous. Like how much money we would be spending, you know?
I know, it's crazy. But
Yeah.
the point is that in any given moment, the AI agents will not be too tired to go research and say, hey, actually, it'd be better if you flew out on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday, and
Yeah.
you would save this much money. And then, or you should rent a car from this company. They've got a sale going on. And like,
Yeah.
it's just never going to be too tired to do all that.
Yeah.
So so the idea with the credential is the same thing, where, you know, rather than say, oh, this person has a degree and this person doesn't, we should hire the one with the degree. Well, let's do an interview, and AI will interview both people and be like, no, this person has the skills that we need for the job.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy, because it used to be like, oh, if somebody you met says, oh, I graduated from Harvard, you'd be like, well, you're hired.
Yeah.
You know? And now things are going to change.
Yeah, that'll
Maybe
be
that's
really
for the
interesting.
best. I don't know.
That's really interesting because, you know, as we all know, that college literally every year is getting more expensive for me for absolutely no reason. And how many useless degrees that they're just churning out and leaving, you know, kids with thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. It's to the point of being ridiculous. So I guess that goes back to education, you know, having to change that system, because, you know, it might just be to the point now where people go to college for those degrees that are needed, you know, being a doctor or something like that, you know, but,
sure.
yeah, I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, just testing in general is going to be change really specifically where it comes from. Changes from regurgitating trivial information to having true understanding. You know, it's kind of like that thing where you really understand something when you can teach it to another person.
Yeah.
In simple terms.
Yeah.
You know. All right, number 5. We're optimizing our kids for a test that no longer exists. AP scores, GPA, college admissions, these are all designed for an economy that measures credentials. The economy your kids will actually work in measures demonstrated capability. Those are different games with different preparation. Similar to what we've already kind of discussed. It's like, you know, we've already jumped into this territory.
Yeah.
Where, you know, having the credential, getting your kid ready for the test doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do great in the world, which really is no different than how things have always been. I just think in the past, like if you were armed with a master's degree, it's just like you have this feeling like you're going to get hired over a person who just has a high school degree, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what's really changed there, other than maybe in the future you can have the AI interview people, and you're just going to like weed out people like this if they don't have the right attitude. I think it's going to be a lot of pressure. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I've never liked the standardized tests too. You know, I mean, even when it comes down to the SAT, if a kid's not good at taking standardized tests, it's just not fair. You know, you could have a kid who's brilliant just buckle under the pressure of those tests.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting to see, at least for like the 90% of us who are, will it even the playing field for us a little bit more? I mean, we already know what's going to happen up here, the 10%, but would it make things a little bit more fair for us? I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that a lot of this pressure is ultimately going to fall on the shoulders of the parents.
Yeah.
To make their home.
That's true. Yeah.
A really strong learning environment with strong habits where you can't rely on the schools anymore because I mean, these teachers at schools, they already have so much pressure on them and they're following the curriculum. I think it's going to move like as slow as the Titanic.
Yeah. I mean, and not just that, hopefully it would take some of the burden off of the teachers' shoulders a little bit, if they give tests and then the AI is, grading them.
Sure. Sure.
That would be interesting to see, but I am so very pro continuing to have physical teachers in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm excited about the possibilities, especially from the standpoint, at least here in the U.S., of some of those, the schools don't get the fundings that they need. And, kids that are, falling behind in rating and stuff like that, hopefully that would help.
Sure.
With that. And I also, I don't know for sure, but it would be, we still would need teachers, because kids still need support, I think, in other ways. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it would be weird not to.
Yeah, right.
I think we're always going to need teachers.
Yeah.
Number 6, the most dangerous thing you can teach a child right now is to wait to be taught. Passive learning, sit down, listen, absorb, repeat, is the skill most at risk of being completely irrelevant. Kids who know how to direct their own learning are going to look like a different species within a decade. Again, I think that just ties back to curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity for sure. And I think that's like going to be, at least from the parent standpoint, to kind of lead them towards their curiosity. Like, oh, mom, dad, I'm like interested in this thing. Okay, well, how do we figure out more about that? That's the one thing about AI I've been reading a lot about, is to get your kid's brain to be like, not go straight to the answer, but how to get them to be like, oh, how can I learn more about that? What do I do? And it's not just, of course, go straight to AI or to Google. How do we figure that out more together, type of thing. So
I suppose just being passive is just not appropriate in any sense of the word.
No. And that's the thing, I guess, like, I think most of us are just kind of living in our lives, but, with things changing the way that they are, whether we want it or not, you actually have to live your life.
Oh, yeah.
It can't just be like, I wake up in the morning and I go to work and I come home and I sit and watch TV and make dinner and stuff. You're actually going to have to make physical steps to live your life more. So, yeah.
Well, I think that the idea of the active versus passive, as an, kind of thinking as an audience member, whether it be like listening or viewing, I mean, it's really telling. Sometimes I'll sit and watch a film with friends, family, and then we'll go to discuss it afterwards. And it's like they don't remember. They can't discuss like certain elements. And I know I work in film and television. It's not really fair.
Yeah.
But when I remember going to the Peabody Conservatory, my first few years there, I realized I had to learn how to be an active listener. I had loved music growing up, and I listened constantly, but I wasn't actively listening a lot. I had to kind of train that muscle even more. And you realize how much information is given to us all the time, and it just kind of we're just absorbing it passively. That's why I'm
we're not retaining a lot of it too.
Sure.
Like I'll listen to a podcast, and then at the end of the podcast, I'm like, I know I listened to it, but what did they say?
Yeah.
Like this one, you know?
Well, that's why I love this concept of using AI to help you have a second brain. This is could be a whole podcast, and it has been for years now. But the idea of the second brain, where you can kind of jot down little thoughts so you won't forget, and then reference it later. Yeah. So people have done things like this using Notion and Obsidian, and now all the LLMs are starting. The context memory, and the recall, just to help with that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be important going forward, which ties back to curiosity. All right, number 7. What do you want to be when you grow up? Is the wrong question. The right question: what problems do you want to solve, and how fast can you learn what you need to solve them? Career paths are going to be so nonlinear that identity through profession may not even make sense for your kids' generation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because identity is like a huge thing. Because like a lot of things that I've been listening to recently is about who you are, your identity. What is your, book that you're writing in your life? Who's the author of your book?
Right.
So that's really important, is identity and all of this stuff. Curiosity, identity. See, that's why very human things,
Yes,
you know what I mean, are
sure.
all coming into play. Because I'm telling you, I was like arguing with the chatbots, but I mean, in this, they're talking about what's very human, so.
Yeah. That's very important. Well, I had two thoughts. I was listening to Alex Wissner-Gross, I think his name is, earlier this morning, and they were asking, what should young people be doing right now? Because we know AI is going to take a lot of these jobs. What are some safe career paths? And he recommended, don't think in terms of a career path. Think about problems that exist in the world and how to solve them. And he says, if you aim for that, that's probably the safest path you can follow. But it's weird because I think our society is really wound up in identity. Are you an artist? Are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer?
Yeah, but I think that's just not the right way to focus on it.
Not anymore. I think that.
Well, before, like as I remember growing up, I don't remember having to identify as really anything. I just I was. So like, what does that mean exactly? Identity.
Sure.
And identity outside of, I want to be a writer, or I am a Christian, or you know what I mean? Like those identity markers, like why are we thinking in those solid terms? Like why, do you know what I mean? Like
I think we're simple when it comes to that. That's why marketing is so effective. They want to categorize everybody. I always despised that as a music creative, being relegated to like, oh, this is rock, this is pop, this is jazz, this is classical. And it's like, but you listen within those genres, there's like infinite differences, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Your brother said something yesterday. He said he thinks this will be the age of the polymath, where people who have wide interest base, where they can do a lot of things well enough to get ahead, are going to really succeed right now, rather than the specialists, which have succeeded for the last however many decades. Now we're going to a place where, like, if you're curious and you have enough intelligence to kind of use the AIs to make up for things you don't understand, you can get really far now, because the AIs will catch you where you have gaps in your understanding and knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if that's true.
Yeah. Well, also it's going to be about finishing things too, which has been a big conversation in our house. But yeah. Okay. What's the next one?
Number 8, characters still can't be audited, and that's your window. Learning gain per hour is brutal and efficient at measuring skills. It measures nothing about whether your child is honest, resilient, empathetic, or trustworthy. The human qualities that have always mattered will matter more, not less.
That's what the AIs keep saying. They're going to matter more. And so I'm actually working with the AIs right now to make, kid-based learning at home. So hopefully, by the end of the year, we'll have something, it'll be not just like, workbooks, but it'll also be, specific toys and stuff like that to help, kids do that stuff at home. I mean, and it's not going to be like with an AI or anything like that, at least at this moment in time, but it's going to be, I think we're putting a lot of emphasis on being human, in these things, staying human.
Sure.
So that'll be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand how being more human is going to ensure a future for us. My brain is still trying to figure that out,
Yeah. I don't know.
I agree with all of that stuff, teaching your children those things. I mean, that's always been, I think, a given.
Sure.
But I mean, putting more emphasis on it at home, I guess.
Yeah,
You know?
this is like, it's one of those conversations where like, okay, this is really nice and important, but how are we going to pay the electric bill? How are we going to put food on the table?
Empathy is not going to put, food on my table. So how exactly, like, how is that going to work in the future? So that's a really interesting conversation to have with the AIs. Like, if you yourself want to go in and be like, how is me being more human going to ensure a future for me, type of thing. So
yeah, I mean the AI future optimists, they keep talking about how, well, in the future, you're not going to have to chase after capital, i.e. money.
Yeah.
You're not going to need money because there's going to be so
It's
much
all,
abundance.
It's all,
yeah, which,
hypothetical right now. So,
personally speaking, I could see that being possible in 15 to 20 years, but like surviving until then.
Exactly.
Because I think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath when it comes to like the job losses we're going to see, especially in the white collar knowledge work area over the next 5 years. I think it's going to be horrific, and I don't know where all these people are going to go because like you have all these people who are going to lose their high paying jobs, and then they're going to be forced to get lower paying jobs in more than likely the service sector, driving for Uber, which you're going to have more people. So then the wages will probably go down, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, well, let's not focus on making us feel
yeah.
negative right now. Okay, move
back
on.
to education. Number 9, the school you should fear isn't the bad one. It's the one that's just good enough. A clearly failing school creates urgency. A school that produces average outcomes comfortably is the real trap.
Yeah.
Average optimized institutions will be the last to adapt, and they'll take your kids' most formative years with them.
Yeah.
Woo. All right. That's, yeah.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, that's when they first started giving some of these standardized tests. I don't know if it was the No Child Left Behind thing. But it was like every kid had to take this test, and if they couldn't pass it, then they couldn't graduate. But then they kept just giving it to you, and until you passed that test, and so it was just like, what is the point?
Yeah.
What is the point if the kid has? I mean, but how are we even? Like, if you're getting good, decent grades, why do I have to have this test tell you whether I can graduate or not? I guess it goes back to the standardized test. But the point is that a school that's doing okay, they're literally just continuing to give the kid the same thing until they are at a, passable place to just move them on. You know? And I heard this thing the other day where it was like, there's a lot of schools that, I mean, the reading proficiency is at like 10%, and then math was at like maybe 15%. And they're just moving the kids on to graduate. I mean, that's the thing. Like, but then it, like it said, it's not the lower ones. It's the ones that are just like, just passing. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not paying attention. You're like, oh, everything's fine. Yeah. That's why I said I think a lot of this is going to rest on the shoulders of the parents.
Yeah. But I think it's going to rest on the shoulders of the parents to start going to the school boards and stuff like that, and forcing them to keep up with what's going on.
Sure.
So we're going to have to all go to the school boards, or even literally go to the states and being like, look, this is what's coming out. This is what they're saying about a future of education.
Right.
We're not going to be having factories anymore that are going to be pumping things out. You guys need to start implementing, small changes now. It's time, so.
Yeah. It's like I said, fall on the shoulders of the parents. Yeah. That's what's going on.
I know, but I'm saying outside of the home too.
Outside of the home. Yeah. All right, number 10. We are the last generation of parents who can still pretend the old system works. Our parents could reasonably assume that if their kid got good grades and went to a decent college, they'd be okay. I think that was true.
Yeah.
We can't make that assumption for our kids. The question isn't whether to change how we raise them. It's whether we have the courage to do it before the system forces us to. The system forcing us to. I don't know if I agree with that. Because I don't think the system's going to force us.
I think the system's behind.
Yeah.
The system's very far behind to me, because I feel like we're still having the same old arguments we've been having for like 100 years.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay, yeah, like I get it. Let's just figure out on the things that are actually mattering, like right now and today. So I think we're the ones that are going to have to force the system to change,
Sure. Well, even something as simple as like using your voice to communicate with a computer. I mean, I don't know if anyone's done it with Gemini. You can hit the live mode button and you can just talk with it, natural language. You can take pauses. You can say ums and ahs, and it's really good at just having a conversation. And then when you're done, it shows you everything that was said between you and it in text. And a lot of people, I've even seen engineers and coders say that they're working with like Claude Code or OpenAI's Codex in speech. They're just talking to it.
Oh, yeah.
And because they find it to be faster than typing. And I feel like there's some controversy. What I've heard is that, you know, when you talk with it, it can be more natural for you, but often people are better when they write down because you kind of can see your thoughts more clearly and you can kind of like get to your points, I guess, more specifically or more in depth when you're writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because we've raised that way. Like writing was like, okay, you got to sit down and write this down. That's when you really kind of clean up your thoughts. But I'm wondering for kids, if they start working with the computers very like vocally, I wonder if they're going to get at a place that's more prepared for the future. I just don't know, but I think you got to start playing with it.
It's going to be hard because like I'm very pro right now, raise your kids like the 90s, you know, but that means like less tech, play outside, you know, type of thing. But maybe part of that raise your kid like the 90s is having just the computer that's in the family room, you know, and together maybe you guys do that stuff. You know, I'm very pro like taking a lot of the iPads and stuff like that out of the schools. Honestly, I mean, I don't think any kid needs to have that stuff, but that's another conversation. Just because of all the studies, you know, that are coming out. But you know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with maybe having like a curious hour or something like that in your family with your kids, where you go to the family computer and you sit down and you guys maybe use some of this stuff. I mean, I don't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought of like a simple lesson was like, hey, if, like, let's just show them like you're interested in whales. Let's work with one of the LLMs like to teach us about whales. So they kind of learn how to learn with the help of the LLM. Basically, I mean, like
I think right now we're kind of waiting. I think a lot of this stuff for our kids to kind of stumble upon them with their curiosity by themselves. You know, like if your kid has a phone or a tablet, you know, the kid's going to download those chatbots themselves. And then they're going to start exploring them, you know, with their curiosity, but by themselves. And I think that that's not the right way to do it.
No, I don't think that's safe at all.
Not at all. Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to go back to, you know, one of the things that is really important to us on Raising Digital Humans is, you know, online safety and stuff like that for your kids. So I think when we talk about curiosity, this is all going to have to be a parent, you know, a parent thing that they do together, you know.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
Well, more to come on this. Hit like and subscribe if you would, and check out and watch out for the next episode.
Yes, watch out for the next episode. Thanks, guys.